let's talk a little bit about the feedback you've gotten as well, because you talked about the outside collaboration. And you and I were in discussions as we prepared for this interview, and you told me about your calls that you've had scheduled with NAMI, and that is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. How have some of these outside collaborations and some of the outside input that you've gotten, how has that progressed? How constructive has it been? And how has it helped the launch, which I know it's been a very recent launch for the Imminent Risk Alert?
It's very interesting. So we have been trying to approach many of these organizations in mental illness and suicide prevention. So there's an apprehension from the get-go, because most of these organizations are non-for-profit and they have a very specific mission, basically to prevent mental illness and so on. So we're in the same group. We are definitely on that track, and we serve many patients and provide tools to physicians to help their patients in their mental health journey. So one of the goals that we have as a company, as we're collecting this information, is if there's a patient that needs help, immediate help, and we have these organizations, we're connecting the platform so they can have access. So, of course, we go through all the regulatory phases, signing agreement, HIPAAs, and those stipulations that have to do with data privacy. But once you identify one of these patients, it's a medical emergency. So all the regulatory laws, liabilities, they change completely, because now all the focus and the priority is to save that life. So we've been partnering with these organizations and saying, here we are as a company doing our community work, so to speak. We are taking advantage that we are screening multiple patients across a universe of over 100 practices, over probably more than 500, almost 1,000 providers, give or take. And here's the important fact that we like to transfer and communicate that 40% of patients committing suicide in the US, they have seen a primary care practitioner within 72 hours of committing suicide. This is happening at a rate of 15 minutes per day. Every 15 minutes, we're having someone succumbing to suicide.
I'm sorry,
So
was
we
that
say
15 as in 1-5?
15,
Wow.
yes, every 15 minutes. So as we speak, it's happening. So as we access all these populations in primary care, we said, I think this is a good opportunity for us to save lives. So the rate of a suicidal risk alert is low, and it should be. So if we're accessing 300, 500 patients, maybe 1,000 patients a day, maybe in a given week, we can see 1 to maybe 3 of these imminent risk alerts in a week, okay? And the statistics are very clear. Every 15 minutes, someone committing suicide. And in a typical primary care practitioner or practice, they may have a patient that commits suicide once in maybe in a year or maybe 4 years. In a period of 4 years, they may have one of these patients that many times has failed to be identified by the provider. Because it's not the same to me sitting in front of you, let's say, doctor, I feel sad, I feel depressed, and I want to commit suicide, I want to self-harm. On the other hand, when you allow people to use their phone, their devices, from an intimate space, from my device, and I answer, it's a very different. And there's a reason behind why we use the phone as the means to deliver those assessments, because it's been shown research-wise that people open up. They say what is actually happening with them, providing another opportunity for the provider when they come in. I see your assessment. I see that there's a risk here. It's shown in my alerts. Let's talk about it. And usually it's assessment I said the night before or day before their appointment. So there's time to intervene. And ultimately, the patient can be seen the next day, while the alert it's there in the system for the physician or the provider to see.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think we all are a little bit guarded when we see our physician, even if they're a primary care physician that we've seen for several years. We still guard our own privacy. So the convenience and the privacy that the app or the desktop site gives you will allow yourself to be more forthcoming with what's really going on in your life. And I mentioned at the outset of that last question that I know this is a recent launch, and you're giving me some of that in that last section there, but let's talk about, have you seen any real world impact from this tool already? And what kind of results are you seeing from it?
So the first when we went live, I'll be honest with you, I couldn't sleep. I was in the expectation to see if this is happening, and we wanted to make sure that the system was capturing the information, alerting the provider, and giving the actual tool to the patient. So in those first 24, 40 hours were very tense. Once we have the first alert, we verified and we make sure that the clinic or the practice saw that in their alerts report, and they confirm that yes, we got it. We see in the patient in the system. We're going to contact the patient and we're going to proceed and follow up. And then it's been roughly 10, 11 days since launch, and we have identified a 4 individuals that are these high level escalation. And that's the imminent risk alert. But that doesn't mean we are not looking at the whole universe for other mental health needs that are not emergency level, but are things that need to be addressed. And these are patients with high depressive symptoms, high anxiety symptoms, patients that are not sleeping well. Again, as I mentioned, it's an opportunity to have these program that it's at the population level, a capturing in real time, and once it identifies, it allocates the patient to a certain place in terms of easy to identify. That's why the conversation with the NAMIs and these agencies is becoming very interesting, because there's no many companies that is doing this kind of effort. So one thing is to send an assessment and the patient answer and it scores, voila. But in terms of interpretation, patient report, patient support, and alerting the provider. So the agencies are interested, and we can get into government contracting and so on as part of the future, is what if we have this tool? It's a universal tool to screen everyone coming into a public or mental illness kind of primary care at the government level or at the state level. And as the patients come in, already the officers or the agencies know these are the patients, these are the different risk stratas, and then we can send resources to those patients. It's a concept of population health. And there's no many platforms out there that they have the capabilities and the again, the level of detail to actually find that needle in the haystack sort of concept. And here's the patient that needs immediate help. Here's the patient that probably needs to wait a little bit more. And these agencies are very interested in what we can do and would like to have eyes on our platform, as we are basically providing them, giving them a set of patients that will benefit from their services.
Yeah, you bring up an interesting point. This isn't all about just preventing suicide. This is also about preventing some of the things that we've seen from people who aren't stable, and the acts of, I don't know what we want to call it here, whether it's an act of terror, but sometimes it's just terrible what can happen if somebody goes unchecked and unwatched. And, I would like to think that with the right care, these people can live normal lives and be brought back into a state of mind that isn't destructive to themselves and is not destructive to others. So I can see why this would be of keen interest to some of those federal, state, and government agencies as well. So as we progress through 2025, we are talking about a public company here. So this is a company, and again, there's news out today on Dateline of recording this, which is February 11th on a different topic. Great piece of news. I encourage you to go find that news, viewers and listeners. But as we progress through 2025 and speak specifically towards the imminent risk alert, what would you like to see happen with this tool?
So there's two main enhancements that we are working and we really want to materialize. First and foremost is right now, from all the agencies and all the tools that we know about suicide prevention, these tools depend on the patient making the call. We want to have the ability to provide the alerts to 911, specially trained personnel within 911, that when they see the alert, they call back the patients. And if there's a little bit more of escalation in that process, call the authorities and intervene earlier. Because as you mentioned, one thing is this patient that it's self-harm. That's one thing. That's their life. But many of these patients are also unstable and they represent a risk to themselves and others. And what happened early in this year, first day of the year in New Orleans, this brought a national attention. And this was one of those triggers that as a team here at QHS Lab, we said, we need to accelerate this process because probably we might be able to participate in preventing a tragedy like that. And again, it's a public responsibility as a company that we have that. So we look into that. Number one is connecting the service to authorities that can intervene the patient. And number two, the other enhancement that we're working as we're in the area of AI, basically, we're looking into AI enhancements that as the patient responds and identify the risk, the platform can already start having some kind of support with the patient, similar to the concept of the chatbot. But this chatbot is going to be trained specifically in suicide prevention and preventing or giving some time to the patient to de-escalate as the authorities and other agencies get active, hopefully preventing another life succumbing to suicide. That it's a terrible thing. Think about it. It was roughly 45,000 people, 46,000 people that died last year on suicide. That is the size of a small, medium town here in America. And we think that with the capabilities of the platform, having the corresponding authorities access and some enhancements that we can work from our end, we might be able to impact those statistics at the long run. Yes.
Well, I'm excited to see how 2025 plays out, not only for this part of your company, but for USAQ as a whole. That's the ticker symbol again on the OTCQB. We are speaking with Dr. Marco Sanchez-Gonzalez. He is the Vice President of Medical and Scientific Affairs for QHS Lab. Go to their website, qhslab.com. Click on that assessments tab, download this app. If this feels like at all it may pertain to you, not only just today, but in the future, have this at the ready for yourself. Have this at the ready for a relative that you may need to speak to and introduce this to them as well. Dr. Marcos, it's always fabulous to speak with you. I always appreciate you taking time out of, we can tell, a very busy schedule as you've just rolled this out, but we were excited to talk about this today, and we look forward to speaking with you again here in the near future.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Always glad to share with you and the public tools we're developing and how we can also make them more accessible to everyone.
Outstanding. Well, for Dr. Marco Sanchez-Gonzalez, I'm Stuart Smith of SmallCapVoice.com. Please hit that subscribe button. If you liked this interview, hit that like button. Leave the comments below. If you need us to reach out to you in any way regarding the topics that were covered today, we'd love to do so. We can put you right in touch with this company, no time at all, and in a very private forum as well. So again, for Dr. Marco Sanchez-Gonzalez, this is Stuart Smith saying thanks so much for tuning in.